Hello, one and all, and welcome back to League of Europe Season 7. This is the 12th round of the Division 2 Championship, and it is coming to you from the famed Ibbo Autodrome. Yes, indeed. So, we're going to look to get the 12th round of the season underway after the 11th round. Of course, last coming out at Zandvoort, we saw the ever-changing nature of this division continue to evolve to take you through the action of the 12th round tonight. It is myself, Daka, and alongside me, as always, it is QBR Verstappen. Verstappen, how you doing, my friend?
Hello everyone, and indeed, welcome to Division 2 League of Europe here, round 12 at the Sir Ibbo Autodrome. I'm doing quite well. Not a very packed grid tonight. We're looking at 15 drivers, I think, but could be entertaining nonetheless with 2 DRS straights. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. We'll have to see.
We will have to see as we go into qualifying. Pristine weather. We have seen some rain elsewhere so far tonight. We don't know if we're going to see it throughout this evening. Of course, we barely have seen rain in Division 2 this season. It has been all but absent, I think, bar the Belgian Grand Prix a few weeks ago. This is the last round before a 1-week break, by the way. We'll be coming back in China in a few weeks' time, so the drivers will have a bit of a chance to rest after this one, but they're going to have to go to war as such out there on the circuit for now. XL Gary is going to be first out the pit lane, followed by QRT Time, and 2 drivers we usually expect to be out there pretty quickly, but with a vastly shrunk grid compared to what we usually see, only 15 drivers. Whatever happens, this dynamic of this race and the way it unfolds is going to change quite a lot. I think most importantly though, realistically, given the rate of finishing we've seen in Division 2 this season, getting a clean race probably means there's going to be points at the end of the tunnel for you.
I think that's normally already the case in this division. And yeah, it's even amplified by the fact that we only have 15 on the grid tonight. It's gonna be just about keeping it clean. Penalties are one easy to get as well. With the amount of safety cars we've seen this season, it's very important to keep clean on that aspect as well. We just have to see how these drivers go with it, and it's maybe an easier thing to give up qualifying if you want to try for the alt strat as well, because there's only 5 spots there. Yeah, it's easier to back off a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see how these drivers play it. Of course, those spots outside the top 10, there are simply less of them. So we'll have a look and see how the strategies are going to be shaken up. First up is going to be XL Gary. We'll see him take on the Sir Ibbo Autodrome first up then. So the Red Bull man opens up that final corner and over the line to get the lap kicked off then. So you can see there 200 metres to DRS, opening up that rear wing. First off, they swing it through that kink of turn 1, easy flat out, and now barreling towards the first major braking zone at turn 2. Long run's going to make things very interesting in the race, breaking down 3rd gear there, try and get early on the throttle, keep the momentum as you head over the kink of 3 into turn 4. You can see now winding and winding all the way through towards the end of that first sector, opening up at a turn 5, keeping it nice and steady all the way through. Now you set up that entry to turn 6. He's using that curb to try and maximise the width of the track. That's middle sector, prioritises that driving style. Into turn 8 now, you see, gets close to the sausage curb as you can. Got to keep it within the white lines, but pushing it as much as you can. Track limits aren't particularly strict here on the game, are being monitored heavily by the stewards as he punches out traction out of turn 11, opening up that DRS. Again, the rear wing is opened and giving him as little drag as possible, as much straight line speed for the Red Bull as he comes through over 320 kilometers an hour onto the brakes and towards turn 14 and 15. Then try and get as good a traction as you can. You've got to be careful on that right foot and here into the off camber. Tricky 16 and 17 chicane out of the throttle, then trying to come up towards those final two corners, opening it up nicely. Again, taking it relatively safe here as Gary just wanting to get a solid lap on the board. It is a 1:30.5, a good banker lap for the Red Bull man. Timon is slightly behind him on the track, actually backed off, so he's going to go again, set himself up, so the laps are going to come in later. But XL Gary getting things kicked off there with a solid lap to get things going in this 18-minute session.
We'll have to see. You know, XL Jaco is one that likes this track. He's just coming around the final two corners into turn 19, flicking it in third gear across the line. He is just a tenth shy of Gary's time, and I think his teammate Funky Chicken is coming around. He's about half a second off, unfortunately.
Yeah, running very wide at the final corner as well, not the cleanest lap. Creco on mediums. There isn't a huge tyre delta here, but that is a very solid lap from Emily Creco. Carmental, the championship leader. It's still incredible to say that given the way this season has unfolded. A few tenths slower. You can see these lap times coming in. That scream is nearly on Carmental's time. We saw, I think, Forza Brendan going up to third, Coxey up to fourth. These early times coming in, Coxey just replacing Creco as the fastest medium runner. But of course, very early days in the session, so we'll keep an eye out. RTC to the line, he is just invalidated, getting things kicked off once again. So we can see some of these early laps coming in. Gary, fastest at the moment. And again, as you mentioned with that sort of strategy, then harder to get on that alt strap. It could be very valuable being outside that top 10. Even more so than usual with the way things could play out with the reduced grid that we have right now. QRT Simon heading towards that final corner. Open it up then. Try and get as early in the throttle as you can. He goes fastest, 1:30.3. So QRT Simon, the man in second in the championship, making an early statement then. Puts that on provisional pole. That's a great lap to get things kicked off. And QRT Timon, of course, that objective has cut down that championship lead of Carmentalist. Carmentalist 26 points ahead of him. So still a decent gap, but Timon going fastest then, trying to stamp his authority on that title fight.
Yeah, it's a very solid banker lap for the Alfa Romeo driver. Just following it, Matt Tibbles, he's coming around the first sector. Says he's purple, I'm not too sure if he is because it's half time and with a quicker time through the middle sector. Just flicking it in. It's very important to carry in as much speed as you can. And now down into the double left of 9 and 10. Difficult corner, curve on the inside can launch you all the way into the wall if you're not careful. And now open up the DRS zone. Could be an overtaking spot down towards turn 14. But it is a very difficult one to get it stopped. It's very difficult on the brakes. I have to see. 4.4 is not that far off Timon actually. He just about goes up the curb of 14. Doesn't look too clean, but on the throttle, that looks a lot better. Down towards 16 and 17. Probably the most difficult section of the track. Open up the throttle once again quite nicely, does Matt Tibbles. And towards the final two corners, can he finish this lap off strongly? Can he get himself up there? Let's see, last corner, across the line, Matt Tibbles, 30.7, puts him into P4.
Yeah, and a few mistakes on that lap as well, so plenty of time on the table, I believe, for Matt Tibbles, and of course, race winner from Spa. XL Larkin has been pumping in laps. Timon comes to the pit lane as it stands. Slash is the furthest along on the lap for Verstappen.
Yeah, I've just noticed IRTC time, 30.7 on mediums, which is incredibly strong. I have to watch out for him, because he could be right up there. Slash on a 105.2, not the strongest split time. Maybe he can improve some in the final sector.
Yeah, we'll see what he can get out of that. Yeah, that's a very good lap from RTC, but only 3/10 off the pole time from Timon, so certainly a man to watch out for. In the back end of the session, we will see how that is going to work out when things are all said and done. TDG Slash coming up to the line now. Yeah, not a particularly quick lap. A 31.9. We'll certainly be looking for more. Larkin, a good lap on mediums. A few laps on those tyres as well, so he'll be happy enough with the 31 flat. We're getting towards those second runs now. A few drivers on out laps, so Timon's opened up the session nicely at the Ibbo Autodrome, just 2 and a bit tenths clear. Gary will get things going on the next lap, as well as Mr. MM Replays Marnie, or I think we're just going to call him Black. We'll see what he can do in his debut in Division 2.
Yeah, just coming through turn 2 and 3. Very easy to invalidate if you just are a bit too aggressive, and then it's important to stay tight here through turn 4, running at that curve. And towards turn 5, again, the inside curve, a very difficult one. Just about gets that Nice lead Marnie does. And now across the first sector split, 33.0. Decent enough, that is. 4th gear on the exit here. Looks very clean, looks very solid, that car. And just flicking it through the right-hander of turn 8 and now down towards 9 and 10. Open up the throttle. Very cleanly done by Marnie. And through turn 11 now. DRS once again open. And we'll see. We've seen speed around 320 kilometers an hour, I think, towards the end of the straight. Sector 2 split, 104.4. Very decent, actually. It's around the same we saw from Matt Tibbles. Matt Tibbles' last sector wasn't too great. But this looks much cleaner from Marnie, I have to say. And then into second gear for 16 short, shifting to get the traction down quite nicely. Open up the throttle. And towards the final 2 corners, once again, important to flick it in through turn 18 and 19 as well. Carry a lot of speed as you can to the line. 130.4, just over a tenth of Timon's time.
Gary, though, going very quickly. The other Red Bull behind, a little bit of understeer to the final corner, but he goes fastest, 130.2, just under a tenth of a second clear. Very good lap from Marnie, though. Very good car placement throughout that lap, and putting that car onto provisional pole. Nathan JB, though, has put in a very strong first 2 sectors, so we'll keep half an eye on him as he comes up towards the line in the McLaren, opening up turn 19, gets it to the line, goes 4th. 130.4, just shy of Marnie's time into P4 at the present moment. So decent lap from him. We'll see what the rest of the field has got to offer. Jekyll has just come to the middle sector split, also fairly fast. 104.2 is the time for the first 2/3 of the lap. So he is now going to hit it into those final few corners then, out of that very, very tricky turn 17 now towards the final 2 corners then, nicely through the apex and uses a lot of track. Good opening towards that final corner, to the line goes second. XL Jaco then making a statement. Of course, form hasn't been too great for him after a really good start to life this season, but XL Jaco, as you said, at a track he really does like, putting that car onto the provisional front row. 30.2 for Gary and Jekyll. Timon P3, but Timon very quick through the first 2 sectors then. 104.1, I think that may be the fastest time we've seen. So Timon now looking to try and snatch back that provisional pole. He's looked to be potentially the strongest man throughout this session. Carmentalus goes 4th, actually. We don't often see him up there in qualifying, so decent lap from him. TRT Timon now again looking to make a statement. Very nice apex to the final corner, goes fastest. 130.163 to the top of the timesheets by some 600ths of a second. So Timon putting it on pole. The second runs have delivered, and Timon still maintaining that. Coxey heading to line, goes 3rd. So Ariel Coxey, again on track that he really does like, goes 3rd in the Aston Martin, and we're looking at least 4 cars could be a contention for this, but Timon so far with the edge holds on to that provisional pole in the second runs.
Yeah, and don't forget about the light of IRTC, who's just started his lap as well. I'm seeing the Scream as well along a lap, coming through the middle sector here and down towards this turn 9. Very aggressive through there. It looks quite nice actually, down towards turn number 11, 50 meter board is the brake marker. And now open up the DRS and flying down towards it. And he's actually hugging the wall there a bit much, I have to say. 104.4, maybe not the strongest time. Could be just on the edge of the top 10, around 9th place. A bit of a gap between Nathan JB and Matt Tibbles. He can settle himself in between that. It'll be a decent start for the AlphaTauri here now through 16 and 17. Decent time. Forza Brennan's just gone into P9 on a 130.6. And the Scream coming for the final 2 corners. Let's see where he gets himself up to across the line. Just behind Forza Brennan, 400s, also 130.6.
Yeah, so that Scream just creeping into that top 10. Can't ignore this man though. IRTC did a cracking opening run on the medium. His first time on the soft is actually only a minute improvement, 130.6, so clearly not the cleanest lap for the Aston Martin. We know the potential he does have, but he's got to put that together. I mean, if you could do a 30.7 on medium tyres, I'd expect to go quicker than that, so not the greatest lap from Seeb. He is, I don't imagine, going to go again on this run, so he's going to have to try and do it later on. So Seeb, a lot of pace evidently tonight, but a lot of extra pressure put on him that he wouldn't have wanted.
Yeah, obviously, towards the end of the session, you don't want to be right down there and not having a time on the boards, at least not one that is representative close to pole enough, which he seems to have the pace for. Just running on board with Matt Tibbles going over that curb, and it just sends him wide and validates through turn 9, unfortunately, so he'll have to try again as well.
Yeah, certainly. So Matt Tibbles will have to back off of that one. We'll look to reset. We're getting towards the final runs now. Forza Brendan is out there, one of the last cars to come into the pit lane at the end of the second run. So we're going to get things kicked off at the end of the session. XL Gary out first. I think he's given him himself enough time to get 2 laps in. So XL Gary then. Playing the safe game, you could say, so we'll see what he's able to get up to. Currently, P2 has looked very strong all the way throughout this session. Currently, again, just some 600ths of a second off of provisional pole. That game for the poor man's pole position going to be quite interesting, because really, the times are very quick from first down to 12th, and then there's a bit of a big gap. Now, obviously, we saw Larkin going on the mediums. We'll see if he feels like he has the pace to get up there, but those guys that are outside the top 10, there's always that thinking game you've got to play. In a field of 15, you could think that alt strat is going to be very capable, but there's some guys that are just going to have that confidence that they can get further up the field.
Yeah, definitely. Gary is one that is obviously been very good in quality this season, but maybe struggles to put it together in the race. Let's see, maybe he can improve that here. On the story about Autodrome, and coming across the line, he starts his lap.
Yeah, Gary consistently up there fighting for pole in a lot of races this season. Just hasn't quite worked out for him, but he is 6th in the standings and within a shout of second, no doubt. XL Gary onto the brakes and towards turn 2. Nice rotation on the entry then. A bit of curb out of turn 3, but able to keep it together quite nicely then. Now swinging it through the iconic turn 4 here at the Cerebral Autodrome. Now towards the end of the first sector. Through turn 5, a little bit of a entry understeer. Manages to hold on to it nicely. End of the first sector is just some 400ths down. Gets it through nicely through turn 6. Opening up, of course, kink of 7 now into 8. Very important high-speed section of the track. Very committed nicely towards that inside curb. Now heading through turns 9 and 10. Keeping that momentum nicely. That is always so important here. Gary, how's the exit onto the straight? It's not good. Bit of oversteer. Is he going to continue on this lap? No, he won't. He does back off in the end. So Gary, bit of a mistake. Again, he did set himself up for 2 runs though. So XL Gary backed off. Nathan JB is behind the McLaren driver, barreling towards turn number 2.
Yeah, for enough 24 kilometers an hour, just down to 4th gear. Looks quite clean for turn 2 and 3. Takes the tight line through towards turn 4. Alfa and Alfa Romeo, but not too much traffic, I reckon, if they get away quite easily. Now down towards turn 5, flick it in. A bit of oversteer, and he's going to have to back off of that lap as well. I think that can't be representative whatsoever. Yes, he is backed off now.
So we are already seeing then some drivers coming off on their final runs. Again, those mistakes can certainly creep in. Here's a man we don't watch much in qualifying, Ariel Carmenzalis. P5, you'd think, is pretty much committed to trying to start well inside the top 10, or at least giving this a go, which is, of course, highly unusual for Ariel Carmenzalis. Inside a minute in the session, pretty much everyone bar Gary has left this very late. So as you see, a lot of guys still on outlaps, leaving it for that final run. So let's see how things are going to unfold. Carmenzalis, the first sector, he's 1,000th of a second up, so just barely up on that lap at the moment. So we'll see where he's able to try and put that car. He's got just over a 10th, but to find he's using a lot of the track. Heading through turn number 8, really committed through this middle sector, runs it close to the white line, hangs on to it. Current provisional pole time, 1:30.163. That is the mark that all these guys are going to be chasing. Again, Carmenzalis is quite close to the wall, trying to take the line of absolute least resistance down that back straight, but he is down at the moment. Then hasn't been the best of middle sectors. Maybe then the improvement won't quite come from Ariel Carmenzalis. Time has expired, so we're just down to the final runs. Gary is further ahead up the road actually. He's just 100th of a second up. Can he find a bit more time to eke it out? in this last sector. XL Gary around the final corner. Is it Paul? No! Just misses out. Can't quite find the improvement then. So Gary remains in P2. Carmentalus behind. Remains in P4. No improvement. Jaco is behind them and he's 700ths up. Slightly up. But if he finds a bit more time, it could even be provisional pole. What's the last sector? What's the lap for Jaco? He loses time again in that last sector. So Jaco will start no higher than the second row. Larkin's on a good lap then. We're seeing cars invalid late in the day as we see these laps time starting to come in. Coxey is slightly down invalid. Will not be fitting that improvement time and slightly up in the first sector. So he is looking very strong. Marne is backed off. So a lot of these final runs coming a cropper then as we get towards the end of this qualifying session. Who is going to step up to the plate? It's ahead front on the track. It's the Aston Martin of Steve. He goes to the pit lane. No improvement. XL Larkin round the final corner. Tries to back off to the line. Inside the top 10. We saw a late improvement there from Forza Brendan to P5. And the Ferrari. Watch the times. Nathan JB to second on the road. And Timon comes through. And I think it's a 30 flat to further make a statement in qualifying. Dominant from start to finish. He is your provisional pole sitter with Nathan JB. A late effort to get into that front row spot.
Yeah, very good lap from Timon. Put it onto pole position there, almost scraping into the 29th, and a very close qualifying session altogether. Nathan JB obviously a bit behind on 177 thousandths, but beyond that it's very close. Gary and Coxey in the second row. Then we have Jaco and Forza Brendan. Championship leader Carmentalus in 7th, and Marnie, the debutant, in 8th. Krico and the Scream, both AlphaTauris, rounding up the top 10. Then Larkin, that backing off just about helped him, I think. Got him into P11, Seep into P12. We'll keep an eye on him because he seems quick as well. Then the two Williams in 13th and 14th. And Funky Chicken rounding off the grid here.
So that is the grid set for the Cerebro Grand Prix. Let's get towards it then. So, smaller field, 15 drivers, but we'll see if they can put on a show for us here in Division 2 as we set ourselves up for the Grand Prix. A little bit overcast. We'll see if it does end up evolving into any sort of conditions. As I said earlier, moisture has not been a fixture of this Division 2 season. We'll see if in the end he is going to play out in that way. But otherwise, we're going to see how this is going to unfold in a straight, dry race. So they all begin to stack up towards it. I imagine tyre choices outside the top 10 are going to be fairly academic, as we so often see. So they're going to begin to get themselves set up for the race, get everything going, and we'll see them now lined up on the grid. So there's Time and Nathan JB, a familiar front row, it must be said. Those guys up the front of the field, and, well, in terms of the tyre choices, no surprises bar one. The man at the back, Funky Chicken, looking to gain ground early in this race, it must be said.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy. I do know that overall the mediums can go the entire race, essentially. What he could be gambling on is that if it's an early safe score, just maybe an early pit stop he'll try and get himself into that top 10 train, get an undercut, and maybe gain positions that way. It's a risky strategy. We'll have to see how it pays up for him. The other ones just going on to the mediums. We'll be seeing them in for later stops, bar any safety cars. Around lap 15-16, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll see, of course. Safety cars, again, often play a big role in the races. We've actually seen the alternate strategy be put in a bit of jeopardy at times throughout this season, or if you get another safety car, a bit of joy for those guys, because the safety cars can often come at a time where you can't pit for softs and go to the end of the race. Obviously, at this track, with very, very low deck, these softs do have a bit more tyre life, so there's a bit more flexibility on that alternate strategy. We will see, but again, tyre degradation probably not going to play too big a part. Timon leading them around. Nathan JB is going to be up alongside him. Gary, we've seen impressive qualifying. Coxey, very strong qualifying from him. So we'll have to keep an eye out. So there's a lot of drivers, I think, that are specialists here at Russia. And of course, with that absurdly close fight from second really down to 8th, there's only 20 points covering 7 drivers. So we'll see if Timon, who the man on pole position, Nathan JB as well, 4th in the standings, those guys with Gary Could they potentially try and make a bridge? Carmentalus is qualified reasonably well by his standards, but Timon, you'd imagine, is going to be hungry. A race win here would drag him right back into that title fight.
It definitely would be interesting to see. These guys at the front cannot just battle too much, because they're not going to be gaining on Carmentalus whatsoever if that happens. We'll have to see if they put their own advantages over one another. I'll have to see.
So the rear of the grid now begins to take shape with Funky checking on the stop, so watch for him coming through the field. It is Timon and Nathan JB on that front row, long run down towards the first braking zone. We have 5 lights. And we're off the grid at Ibbo from the lane. It's time, and he gets a great start. Pulls way clear of the rest of the field. Nathan JB was dreadful off the line. Gary coming round the outside. Timon is completely broken away. Nathan JB with that slipstream pulls back to Gary as the old jostle heading into the first braking zone. Timon leads side by side for second. Coxey's trying to make a gap there as now Nathan JB through on the inside gets through Gary, and Coxey slotted in behind. So they're all coming through in pretty much single file heading towards turn number 5 on the inside. Carrico with Larkin there as I was spinning his Funky chicken. So that soft strategy not paying off. The round goes the Mercedes on lap 1. Timon a brilliant start, leads Nathan JB. You can see the battles further down. Marnie hasn't got off the line well. That Scream is tucked in behind him. Larkin a brilliant start to get up to 9th. A gap opened up behind him. So a bit of chaos in that midfield, but at the front, no dramas for the pole setter.
Yeah, Timon got off with a rocket start there and absolutely pulled away. And I think he tried to drag Nathan JB in to make the cars behind fight a little bit, but he is not been able to pull away completely. And Nathan JB is going to have to use his ERS to stay with the Alfa Romeo driver. Just single file at the moment, as you'd expect here. Just Funky Chicken at the back, obviously having a spin early on through turn number 5. It's just Timon leading ahead of Nathan JB. He's got an 8-10th gap. Nathan JB has to push here.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see that breakaway attempt from Diamond. He's actually got a ton of battery still left over. So he's really pressing early on, and now the battery comes on and he's immediately going to try and break that toe. Gary not really following in the slipstream, so all these guys are going to be stretched to try and stay within that 1 second range. Jaco is attacking Coxey towards turn number 2. He looks to the inside, but I don't imagine there's going to be a lunge from distance, certainly at this early stage in the race. Drivers not I imagine they're going to be fairly risk averse at this early stage in the race. Nathan JB looks to have fairly good straight line speed though, able to claw back Timon a little bit without the DRS, but he is lower on battery. Timon is going to try and make that effort, but everyone looks fairly comfortable at this point, and you'd imagine once DRS comes into play, things could certainly switch in favour. But I think Larkin is one of the drivers to watch. Very good start tonight, took advantage of some of that midfield carnage, leading medium runner and looking pretty comfortable holding on to that train in front.
He definitely does look like that, and the mediums are immediately a good race tyre around this track, and that is definitely shown by Larkin just keeping up with Forza Brennan and Krieger just about ahead. In the meantime, Funky Chicken is fitted from mediums. I imagine there might have been a wing change, but I'm not too sure with that gap. I'll have to see if he is anywhere going to be able to make any up positions. So Forza Brennan just at the moment there through turn 14, and might allow Larkin to close a bit up towards the Ferrari. Not for now, obviously in this section you can't really overtake easily, so the Alfa Romeo would just have to sit behind for now.
I imagine Larkin's main priority here is just remaining in contact. You mentioned those mediums can be a good race tyre from the offset, but he's going to look to hold station, I imagine, fairly early on. DRS now in play. Nathan JB not nearly close enough, but he has managed to hang on. Gary, as usually is the case, has had a bit of trouble in the early laps, but he has managed to stay in it. Everyone else fairly comfortable. Forza Brendan looks fairly quick. Nathan JB, as he made an error coming out of turn number 2, he recovers the car, manages to stay in it, but he's very low battery, and that error all of a sudden could have given Timon a chance to break away, but Timon wide out of turn number 5. I think he's going to put pay to that.
Yeah, that looks to have helped the McLaren just a bit to stay in, and may just about have saved the whole train in behind from Timon pulling away. But those errors can be so costly around this track, and those curves can be so vicious as well. Difficult to avoid and carry speed and keep on doing that with heavy fuel as well, as Seep is getting close to TTG Slash in the backfield as well.
Yeah, so Save looking to get on with it then. The entire field still in contact with one another after that early start. So they all fell to the way through then. You can see Seb looking at Slash. Slash as well, getting up towards that Scream, who doesn't look overly confident on race pace oh so early on, but they all hold station. Oh! Gary is Coxey potentially coming into contact, or just a mistake from Gary. Coxey's all over him here, and Gary goes straight to the pit lane then. Ooh. He's followed by Jekyll, so those guys coming in very early. You mentioned the mediums the durability on those tyres, and it looks like these two are making that gamble then, trying to get on those mediums early.
Yeah, it's very early for a pit stop, I have to say. I'm quite surprised by that, actually. But if you have a mistake and you do risk losing DRS, it might not be such a bad idea. Looking at the Screamers, looking at a move on Marnie just then towards turn 2, can't get it quite off. That's the pulling behind, but it just shows. Let's have a look where these guys are going to come out respective to Lights of Time and Nathan JB if they do decide to respond.
Yes, certainly, because, well, what's the call going to be for these guys up front? I don't imagine the pace difference with the undercut is going to be massive. So Timon and Co will still be aware of that. Coxey's in a real battle here because those pit stops really hurt him in staying with that DRS train there. He had Gary immediately in front of him then. He got held up by Gary right before he came into the pits. And now Coxey has just about been detached. So this is going to hurt him and those behind him. Mentalist behind him with a lot of battery. You'd think he's going to be the one to potentially take over, but he won't be near enough heading towards turn number 14. Waiting in behind. Slash with that Scream looks much better on race pace after a very shaky quali. So he sits nicely tucked in under the AlphaTauri rear wing, but won't go for the move just yet. So Gary, Jaco, Forza Brendan, they're all slightly out of DRS range of each other, and the leaders by and large, bar Coxey and Carmentalist who come in. Kriko stays out, and then Marnie and that Scream stay out. So Coxey and Carmentalist diving to that pit lane. They're trying to cover off that undercut. I imagine not looking to get away. These guys are going for track possession, whereas I feel like Timon and Nathan JB up at the front, they're just trying to use that strategy that is simply going to be theoretically the fastest. So that dynamic is going to be very, very interesting in a straight race.
Yeah, I'll have to see where does Coxey and Carmentalist, where do they come as compared to this train? I don't think it'll be far off. Brendan and Jaco, I have to see. It was close between Coxey and Jaco here, actually. Jaco's jumped Coxey, and Carmentalist has been jumped by Forza Brendan here. So it does leave Jaco to push a bit, because he's 1.1 behind Gary. He has to close up to the Red Bull now.
Yeah, all these guys bar Carmentalist fairly low on battery. Forza Brendan is trying to go round the outside. I've turned it before, inside of turn 5. Backs out of the move in the end, does the Ferrari. So he tucks right in behind. Penalties will be a factor here potentially, so we'll have to keep an eye out on that. Certainly not the easiest track to keep between the white lines, although the track limits on this game are a bit dodgy. Slash is going to breeze through on that Scream, who again looks to be struggling. Larkin as well, up the inside of Kriko, so we're now seeing the entire dynamic really shifting here. The medium's already looking very strong, and that is not going to be a good sign for Timon and Nathan JB. So are those guys going to cover off? Let's see. Timon stays out, Nathan JB stays out. So I think it's what I said. We've seen these other guys going for track position. That Scream going to the pit lane end, so he's the next soft runner to come in. But I think the interesting thing is, again, these guys up front going for the theoretically fastest strategy. The question is, will they still be in that train? Because at the moment, those softs, well, they won't exactly be going off, but those mediums, especially those fresher mediums, going to have a solid pace advantage at this stage.
One thing to note as well is these guys, because they're battling for that DRS, especially Jaco and Gary, they're draining their ERS, and that is going to benefit Timon and Nathan JB, who will be on fresher tyres obviously later on. They'll benefit them, and they will have another advantage coming into the second stint. Coxey getting quite close to Jaco, just has to tuck in behind for now. Yeah, as you mentioned, Larkin is looking to pull away from these soft runners now.
Yeah, and only if he still managed to only stay a few seconds off the net lead, which, considering where he started, that's pretty good going for XL Larkin. Again, backing off at the end of that hot lap looks to be paying dividends at this stage for the Alfa Romeo man. He runs P3 at the moment on the road. He's dragging Krico and Marnie with him. Those guys still haven't come in. Jaco hasn't quite managed to get to Gary just yet. It's a great scrap between these guys for that DRS at the moment. Gary just about holding Jaco at arm's length. So Gary, Jaco, Coxey, Forza Brendan, car mentalist. Forza Brendan looks to be going out the way. I'm not sure if he made a mistake heading onto the straight. And the leaders now, Timon and Nathan JB into the pit lane at the end of the lap 6, trying to cover off that undercut.
Yeah, Krico's followed them in as well, and we'll have to see whether these guys come out. Is Gary going to be in contention with these guys? I have to see the undercut may have paid off as well. Krico in as well, so let's see if he can get himself amongst the train. And just Gary turning up towards the final corner. I'll have to see, can he be ahead of the McLaren? Currently setting the fastest lap of the race. I think Gary's jumped Nathan JB. It's going to be close to Timon. He's jumped him as well. Timon is just going to filter into that gap of Gary and J. Cole. Meanwhile, Coxey's going for the move on J. Cole as well. And he's up into a net P3. Just about gets that done before turn 3. J. Cole's looking to fight back though on the inside of turn 4. Title line is quicker here. Can he make that one stick? Just about side by side. They keep on going. And J. Cole just about gets that position back. Great racing between the two.
Great racing, but it's essentially possibly knocked them out of that leading fight, because now Gary and Timon pulling away. Nathan JB will be so frustrated with the way things have played out throughout that pit phase, and Timon is going to be delighted, I think, to still be in the fight. Jaco needs that Herculean effort, but he's made an error heading through turn number 9, and again just that little setback holding him back. So that battle between Jaco and Coxey, well, it certainly was good on the eye. Ultimately it's created a gap, and with Timon now injecting some pace coming up towards Gary, if he takes over in that train, then the hope for these guys behind will fade. Nathan JB on the inside, contact with Coxey, round almost goes to McLaren. Car mentalist with some great evasive action to get around that. Nathan JB out of possession. Forza Brendan on the inside looks to get through and towards turn 16. They're wheel to wheel, contact between the wheel rubbing. Nathan JB will simply refuse to lose that possession. They almost touch on the entry to turn 18. Nathan JB holds on, but a bit of a scrappy moment there with Coxey, sets it back, and Nathan JB looking as if he was tracking and stalking Timon. Timon is going to make an easy pass on Gary for the lead of the race, and Timon looks oh so good at that stage then, oh so confident, but Nathan JB, a man who was tracking Timon through the race, dropping back to the pit phase, and the setbacks just continue for the McLaren man.
I think to note as well, Marnie is re-overtaken Larkin for the lead of the race now, which puts Larkin directly just only ahead of Seep and Matt Tibbles. So that's a setback, and it's quite surprising to see Marnie still on this amount of pace. He's still got a decent amount of battery. He is pushing now. He might be going in this lap. Get tired from this. Krico towards Brendan is actually round, and that is not safe. Guy. I think he might have some slight damage, not any visual though. I'm not sure what happened there, but he is down and lost a lot of time here.
Yeah, he does lose a lot of time, otherwise no harm done. He recovers the car, of course, plenty of work to do now for the Ferrari, and will be very reliant on a potential safety car to bring himself back in. Timon dragging Gary along, and the gap just doesn't get any smaller. Jekyll now coming up towards 2 seconds, and no one in this train, bar potentially Nathan JB, has the pace to try and get up to those guys in front. But ultimately, Nathan JB is bogged down here, mainly thanks to that contact he had with Coxey on the last lap. So Timon now, fastest lap of the race, and Gary is already struggling. He was low on battery, and that now limiting his potential to stay in contact. He has got some DRS though to bring himself back in, but he's going to have to work hard to stay with the Alfa Romeo, who looks to command this race at this point. Coxey inside of Jaco, late on the brakes, contact wheel to wheel bagging twice, and it's Jaco who still holds on with the momentum heading through turn number 4. He gets the upper hand on Ariel Coxey, who really is throwing everything at the Mercedes, backs up, actually makes a bit of contact. Car mentalist runs into him, no major harm done. Jaco, Coxey going at it, and again that gap just continues to extend to the leaders, and at this point, with these guys guys just focusing on battling and trying to stay in front of each other instead of working together are getting great on the eye. But ultimately, Timon and Gary have just completely bolted off at the front of this race.
And this must be so frustrating for the likes of Commentalist, Nathan, JB and Kriku, who have a decent amount of ERS. These guys at the front of this train, they just don't have anything to play with, so it's going to require a double overtake for one of these guys to get up in front of the train and maybe actually try and push back, but it is quite impossible to do that at the moment without any major mistakes.
Yeah, Jacob very low on battery. Coxey completely derating at this point. He's having to recover a bit through this last sector, but it's not looking good. Gary still just about staying with timing, but it's going to get tougher and tougher as the tyres continue to wear it. Marnie is still out there, by the way, still setting some decent enough pace. We'll keep an eye on him with some much fresher tyres, or maybe he's just banking on that safety car coming out. Gary has just about managed to stay with it. Coxey is using the battery, what little he has of it, to try and get to Jaco. He's inside a turn 2. Jaco moves over on it towards the braking zone. Coxey, that has him this time, I think. Can Jaco get back towards him? It doesn't look like it. Coxey at last gets through, and Commentalist searching for the move. Jaco was still right there with Coxey. So looks insane, and Commentalist had to get out of that as well. Nathan JB into the back of Commentalist. The frustration continues to mount, and Timon, with a huge effort now on the battery, has managed to pull off the inevitable. He's gapped Gary 1.2 seconds to the Red Bull. Timon now way out in front, and the Alfa Romeo man simply now in complete and utter control of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's looked untouchable so far as Brendan picks up the first penalty of the race, and this train is just looking to get closer and closer, and Jaco can't find a way past here just yet. Nathan JB is looking on the back of Commentalist, not close enough either, and it's just gonna mount the frustration for these guys so much more. As Marty's finally entered into the pits, he'll be in fresh mediums. We'll have to see if he can maybe make up some time, but with these guys fighting, he'd still definitely have a chance at a good result.
I think he could definitely get amongst this train. We'll see where he emerges then. That Scream is a couple of seconds adrift. There's Kriko, his teammate, right at the back of this train and leading AlphaTauri at this stage. So Gary now gone from Timon. Timon is, as I said, in complete control now of this Sarebo Grand Prix. Marnie is going to come out. He will be a few seconds back, there's no doubt about that. But with the fresher tyres and the fact that these guys are compromising each other, Jake will look to the inside, doesn't go for it this time on Coxey, but he has got the battery to use if he wants to. Coxey is just burning everything. He's got no battery. And really, this no holds bars aggressive driving style we've seen from Coxey, well, it's ruled him out of a chance for win. But as it stands right now, he's still in a net podium place. So Coxey looking very strong. And another thing that we've got to point out, that medium train, judging by where Marnie's come out, they won't be more than a few seconds behind. Maybe, of course, these guys can pull a few more seconds on that. But charging late with the softs, those medium runners, again, are going to be ones to watch. And Slash as well, looking very quick, now pressuring the Alfa Romeo of Larkin for the lead.
And from this point onwards, if you have a virtual safety car or a safety car, you can definitely make the softs work. Even though they might not be in the best condition towards the end of the race, it is no doubt a soft pit stop from now. If that is the case, as Jaco's looking for a move once again on Coxey, and they're getting so close for this section.
Yeah, Coxey ran very deep through turn 14 to make sure he stayed ahead. So these guys really going at it. Coxey's just got a little bit more battery on this lap. Jaco doesn't look eager to give this one up. Slash breezes past Larkin for the lead. So Slash now leading this train along. These guys have all got to work together, and Slash has a lot of battery to use. So he can look to try and just pull out that gap that little bit. Group of 5 still for P7 on the road. Jaco now turning on the battery. Is he going to look to get towards him? I think Coxey is too distant on this occasion. So the Aston Martin maintains P number 7 at the moment. So he is from Jaco, and then it's Commentalist who takes a very shallow line there into turn 4. Coxey comparatively up ahead, a very wide line. These guys now going at it for the podium. Marnie a few seconds adrift. That Scream is trying to work his way in, but very low battery. Marnie will see what he can do. He's a few tenths a lap quicker, not a huge amount, and of course he's praying that Jaco is going to fight back against Coxey as hard as Coxey fought to get through on him.
Yeah, he's just hoping for a bit of carnage there, I think, as well. Slash has gone past Larkin for the lead in the meantime. And yeah, these guys will be pitting in around 3-4 laps time without any sort of interruptions there. and it'll be interesting to see if they can find their way through. But with this train mounted up continuously, I think that'll be the case. Nathan JB is now looking for a move on Carmentalus. Carmentalus blocking that off a bit more. Side by side they go. Nathan JB can't get a move stuck there, down towards 14. It has to back out.
Yeah, hard defense from Carmentalus, but Nathan JB now. Really, look, he sends it down the inside and there's contact then. Nathan JB runs it in deep. Carmentalus holds on to the place, but again, no holds barred in this train. Nathan JB is throwing everything at Carmentalus here. He's got the fresher tires. He nearly put the car on pole, and now the frustration mounting as he tries to get through. ERS burning for the pair of them then. So the premier battle in this train looks to have shifted. Nathan JB again, coming at Carmentalus again. Is he going to go at it from distance? Yes, he is. He goes late on the brakes, runs into Carmentalus in round. Nathan JB, contact with Creco off the road. Somehow, there doesn't seem to be much damage despite a massive bit of contact there. Creco, though, just about detached from the train. He'll try and work his way back in. He's got battery to do so. Maybe there's damage, we'll see. So that, I think, based on Carmentalus defending quite hard the lap before, I think, to be honest, I hate to say this, but I think Nathan JB has had a massive moment of simple red mist, because really, as he spins again at turn 6 into the wall, and there's the damage, he'll try and recover it now. But Nathan JB simply, I think, just completely red mist moment there, sending it on Carmentalus then, in places where you just don't see moves from that distance.
Yeah, so already into the turn 16, 17 chicane, just way too aggravated, I have to say. And yeah, you can't be doing that, and it cost him any ends, unfortunately. So he's either going to retire in the pits, or he's going to get a new front wing and hope maybe for a safety car. Turning up late and get some positions that way, but it is not the best thing to see there. This has reduced the train to a 4-car train, but Marnie is now close up to the back of the screen, maybe slightly due to that incident as well, but he looks to be on the pace at the moment, and with those freshest tyres, he could make up some positions.
Yeah, he's right up behind that Scream. I don't think that Scream is going to be willing to fight him that hard. He has actually, as I say that, burning the last of his battery. Marnie closing up to him inside a turn 2, gets on the brakes nicely, and yeah, that Scream's just going to let it go, because Marnie can now drag him towards the train, so that Scream using that to his advantage. 1.7 is the gap. They all run so close. Gary just holding on a few seconds in front. He's built back a bit of battery, not much. Again, though, some of these guys I think have a bit more potential, but now Carmentalus, after that scrap with Nathan JB, he's now low on battery. Creco is really the only one that's looked after it. Marnie has a decent amount further back, trying to get himself in towards it. So really, Creco, the man that probably has the most potential for pace, is fucking chicken, has gone round. He manages to get the car spun around, but again, after a very intriguing strategy that he started the race on, just hasn't went his way at all. So Funky Chicken will now recover it. But realistically, the thing in this train, the man that probably has the most pace at the moment is the one that's locked at the back and just can't move forward at all.
Yeah, it definitely does look like that. I have to see, maybe something changes with some battles, and he can maybe move up a little bit more. I reckon from the next lap onwards we'll see some pit stops. Seep is burning his ERS actually. Look at this, and he's forcing Larkin to go for a move, and he's going to get past Slash himself as well. Looking for a move on Larkin, doesn't get that quite, but has to tuck him by. But it's good strategy that he has forced Larkin to move and gain position off of himself as well.
That's exactly what you do when you're third in a DRS train. You always try and force that second car to move through, because either they battle and they crash, or you could potentially have that opportunity to just slip through, and that's exactly what Seb has done then. Larkin, though, takes the lead of that train and the race. They have lost about 3-ish seconds since the last time I checked in to Timon, but Timon has gained pretty much a similar amount of time on really everyone else, so I can't imagine that these guys will be more than 5 or so seconds behind at the tail end of that second train. Really the biggest battle we see in the race at the moment. Carmentalus getting quite close to Jaco. With those fresh softs, I wouldn't rule out those guys, because don't forget, this is the podium train. I wouldn't rule out those guys of getting at least in that podium fight. The question is, though, can they get through? Because even with better tyres, we know the power of that DRS train. And now we're seeing, though, Marnie has got up to them, and he's now attacking. He's up behind Creco, but Creco's got a lot of battery. He's looked after it very nicely, running in 10th. Marnie behind 11th. They all begin to stack up to each other. It's going to be very tight then, and that's what could make it difficult for the medium starters to come through. But now they go into the pit lane. Larkin, Sieb, Slash. Those guys dive in. Where will they emerge, and how quickly can they work their way back into the fight?
Yeah, Matt Tibb was just forced out to say out one more lap because Slash obviously has pitted. Yeah, not surprisingly, all softs across the board for those guys. And we'll have to see how far they'll be behind. We'll look at that in a second as Marnik is looking close to Krika, can't quite get anything off. And these guys are slowly but surely, they're ruling in Gary. Last time I checked it was 2.1 between Gary and Coxie, is now 1.7, 1.8. So in a couple laps, Gary could be under pressure here as well, as Marnie is looking towards the outside of turn 4 on Creco. Can't quite get that done and has to wait for a little bit behind, but he does have pace and it shows.
Yeah, and I have to commend as well Coxie's pace, considering he's so low on battery. Has reasonably old tyres, just a lap fresher than Gary's, but he is making very nice pace out of those mediums and trying to work his way back towards it. Jaco has saved up a bit of battery, but I think he is also having to work to not let Coxie get too far away as it stands right now. Nathan JB, fastest lap of the race, of course trying to salvage something after such a promising race fell away for him. That gap is just over 5 seconds to that now soft trade. Matt Tibbles, unfortunately, I think is going to just about get dropped from that because of not stacking behind his teammates. Sieb has got a run on Larkin towards the inside, just leaves Larkin to do his own thing. So Matt Tibbles predictably into the pit lane, so pretty much everything's set now. The fight is going to re-emerge. Larkin dragging Sieb and Slash along. We'll see what these guys can do. Timon is way out in front. Been an absolute masterclass from the Alfa Romeo man so far, but really that blockbuster fight could be pretty much from everyone from second downwards. Gary, though, using a bit of battery, trying to hold Coxie at arm's length.
Yeah, Timon has been absolutely untouchable, you have to say, and have to commend that. And I don't think anything could really throw that under the bridge unless a safeguard makes a big mistake. And it doesn't look like that at the moment, but you never know. Still just under 11 laps to go, so I have to see about that. Jacob's getting very close to the back of Coxie once again, but that's happened a bunch of times, and he gets a penalty, and that's going to cost him dearly with those guys in behind, going to catch up the soft runners, and that is very costly for the pace.
Marnie! He was looking at Creco, but then the spin out turn 6, too eager on the throttle from the Red Bull, and that is going to be heartbreaking after a really good recovery to get back into train. Marnie gets the car recovered, but you can see no front wing on that Red Bull, and he'll have to lead it back to the pits, so that is a better blow to what was a very promising drive at that point from him there. Jekyll now lining up Coxie. He's going to breeze through then. Coxie not going to fight that one, so they're working together more as a team now. Jekyll goes through with the penalty, and I imagine now Sieb as well gets through on Larkin, looking to lead that charge up towards that Scream, who still remains isolated in P7 at the moment with the soft runners coming at him. So now Sieb leading them along, trying to get towards it. They should get towards it because wow, they are well over a second a lap quicker. So the pace has really come through. Sieb, Larkin and Slash all coming towards that. Matt Tibbles can get on the party as well. Jekyll is taking over, trying to push with all he has. Coxie from Commensless. Sieb sets the fastest lap of the race, predictably. He's coming up to that Scream now. Going to come up to the train very soon. We'll see how well those soft tyres hold out in terms of pace. But Sieb, Larkin, Slash and Matt Tibbles coming through as a quartet, and they'll be in the train very soon. Marnie gets a penalty, and I think they'll probably call it a day at that. Yeah, he does retire from the session, so that's Marnie out the way. Sieb there right up behind that Scream. He'll try and get through as soon as he can. Aston Martin on that AlphaTauri, getting held back quite a lot now, but if he can get through, then ultimately that sets him up for a charge of that P3 train.
Yeah, he's also so much more grip, especially for this middle and the last sector as well. So he's going to be stuck behind here for a bit, and that could benefit maybe Larkin and Slash from moving forwards as well, but I think Sieb is just getting away towards the straight, and see if Larkin can maybe slip through as well. He's not too far off either. Sieb is going to easily breeze past there, predictably, ERS is open, and that seems to be passed. Larkin is looking for it as well. He looks to have a lot more straight line speed, and the Aston Martin gets very close, has to back off just about there. As I see Commensalus and Krico battling up ahead as well. Commensalus may have made a mistake. Another snap of focus here. They're just out of turn 15. Slash is getting through on the screen as well onto turn 16 with a soft grip. Just so much more grip on the exit. And they've now caught up to the podium train.
Yeah, so now things get very, very interesting. Jericho from P3 trying to drag these guys towards Gary, but really at this point now, he's been set back so much in this race by that penalty, really going to be a detriment to his chances here. Commensalus is starting to derate, so Krico's ERS advantage is coming into play, but he may have bigger problems with the soft guys coming at him at a right rate of knots here. So Seb, Larkin, Slash, beginning to barrel up towards Krico. Well, Krico offer much defense. Of course, these guys for the first time are having to hit these guys on a DRS train, so it will be a bit more difficult to try and make those moves. Krico is swarming all over Commensalus though, trying to find any which way through on the Alpine. Hasn't quite come through now, but again, like I said, they all have bigger problems. Seb hounding Krico. Krico though will be probably the hardest guy to overtake. All the others besides him are really low on battery, so getting through on Krico is going to be objective one for Seb, Larkin and Slash. If they can get through on Krico, then you'd imagine they can get through on everyone else as well.
You imagine so, but it could also force Krico to start making overtakes on Commensalus, on Coxey. You see that already, he's closing up the back of the Alpine, as I think they're all just bunching up slightly, as Larkin is actually looking towards Seb, the side by side. Slash is looking good on both of them. What has just happened there?
Seb and Larkin, I think they've come together somewhat. Seb is backed off completely in the Aston Martin. He's pulling off the track. I'm not sure what's happened there. He's going to the pit lane, so there's no visible damage, but he must have it. So Seb dives in after what was such a promising race in battle with Larkin. Slash completely slips through, gets up at a P7, and now it's set up a great route for Slash to make a great recovery drive from a bad qualifying. Rarely do we see this from Commensalus. Makes a bit of an error out of turn 2, holds on to it. He's looking fairly shaky though. He's got some of the oldest tyres in the field as it stands, a few laps older than Krico's. Gary and Jaco may be the first ones to fall off. Time with a 5-second lead, absolutely cruising. Behind though, anything but, as all hell seems to break loose then. And Slash now the one looking at Krico, so all of a sudden Slash, the man we usually see slipping back in races, time gets a penalty, but that's merely inconsequential at this point, as he's got such a large lead. But Slash now, doors have opened, and could we see a rare recovery drive from Slash here coming through the field?
Could definitely see it. He has a bunch of ERS as well, and he's going to use that right now on Krico. Does he have enough straight line speed though? Krico has also drained off his battery almost already. Slash is going to have to do it into the brakes in turn 14, and they're closing both up on Commensalus as well. And there's contact between Krico and Commensalus, and there might have been wing damage for Slash. I'm not too sure. He ran into the back of Krico, goes side by side. And just a lot of contact wheel to wheel, and I think there might be damage for the Williams, to be honest, with that contact.
Yeah, that was very, very sketchy. Let's see, he is going to stay out. If there is damage, it's not major, but he is understeering quite heavily through those final two corners. And yeah, you can see, I think Larkin visibly, that nose goes in just a little bit better behind, but Slash is still charging, and Krico somehow with no... now he opens a DRS. Now Slash goes outside, and he's going to breeze through then. Larkin will try and follow through. He goes inside of Krico towards turn 2. Brakes very, very late. Gets alongside, nearly in front, wheel-to-wheel contact between them. Krico's not giving this up easily though. He's on the inside through turn 4. Larkin with more momentum, sweeping round the outside. They're going to be nearly wheel to wheel in a turn 5, but Larkin surely has the edge, and he slips through to P number 7. So Slash still looks to be relatively fine. Gets the move on Krico. Krico took a lunge at Commensalus then, and the chain reaction set off into Slash. Slash, I think, has just about got away with it, with only possibly minor damage, if none at all. So he's up behind Commensalus, looking for any which way through, and Commensalus now running very, very wide through turn 9, and now Slash is right up behind him looking for a way through. So Commensalus, as I mentioned, really struggling in this final stint. He opens up the DRS, but there's no battery usage, and yes, Slash, quite simply, is going to breeze through on the championship leader to the top 5.
Yeah, that's the easiest overtake of CTA. I apologise for any sort of noise behind me. The weather isn't too great around here, I have to say. And Yeah, that'll be the noise you'll hear behind me. You can't help it too much. Larkin is just looking for the move on Carmentalist as well. As he gets a bit of oversteer on the exit of 70 on the apex, I got to say, just unsettles this car a bit, but he'll be looking for a move down towards turn 2 as well.
Yeah, certainly. You can see he's got much more grip. Carmentalist still all over the road. Larkin now using the remainder of that battery, and Carmentalist just doesn't look interested in trying to hold on. Larkin going outside now, and now Larkin holding that outside leg. Can he get through on the brakes? He's going to try and go the long way round, and is he going to pull it off? Yes, he is. XL Larkin to P6 on the road, and again working his way through the order now, P6, and it will turn into a top 5, don't forget, because Jaco with that 3-second time penalty, Slash and Larkin will benefit as well, as everyone pretty much in this train. Matt Tibos will try and pull himself into range as well. He's a few seconds shy of this, and just going past that scream at this current moment. Slash though with much more grip, much more battery than Coxey as well. Coxey has held a net podium for most of this race, but now coming under such pressure. So TDG Slash hounding Ariel Coxey, looking for a way through. We'll see if there's any more penalties late in the day. Still got over 5 laps to go. It's not out of the question. If he can get these moves done, Gary potentially could be potentially a target. So we'll see. Slash is so close to the podium, so is Larkin. We'll see if these guys can get through. Coxey's having to hold behind Jaco, so now doors could be open there. Slash and Larkin like hungry wolves looking for any opportunity to snatch at their prey. So Slash hounding Coxey. The question is though, can he get the move done? We've seen Coxey fight hard tonight. I don't imagine anything is going to change now.
Yeah, I can't imagine that knowing Coxey as well. He is going to fight for his life to get that podium as firmly as he can. It's going to be difficult against these soft runners of Slash and Larkin. Slash now using his ERS. Coxey as well in defense. And it's going to close them both up towards Jaco, who is going to have to use probably pretty soon as well, as Coxey's going to get past Slash at a free wide down towards turn 2. Slash is just going to get both of them front of track though. Keeps the position not completely, because Coxey gets through, still side by side through turn 4 they go, and Slash just has to lift off, and Jaco's down the inside back as well. Bit of contact there, Larkin gets through into P5, Jaco's lost 3 positions there on track, and he's just fallen further and further back. Coxey into P3, Slash just has to get that Aston Martin down towards the next straight.
Wow, what a nervy moment that would have been for all of them then, as they all closed up towards Jaco. And in the end, getting through then, Jaco probably just caught in the middle of a scrap then, and he slips down to P6, and ultimately pushing him in range of Matt Tibos and potentially that scream as well, as they get themselves close up towards the train. Slash now behind Coxey. Coxey is going to cover it off there, and Slash is going to wait. Coxey pretty much nothing on ERS. He's been burning it all the way through, and now Slash is right with him, looking for any which way through. Coxey, you'd imagine he's going to fight for all it's worth, but Slash has got him set up so nicely here. So much more grip. He's got the battery advantage. He'll have the straight line speed in the DRS. He's got everything he needs to breeze past Coxey here. Coxey, we'll see if he gets a good punchy exit off of turn 19. It's half decent there, but Slash is near enough. Will Larkin be able to follow through as well? Let's see here. Now Coxey, the remainder of his DRS, but it's nothing to defend from Slash, who sweeps through the inside. Watch for Larkin as well. He's going to follow right through to P3 and P4 for Slash and Larkin. They've made a uniform charge of the field. Jaco fending off Carmentalist further down the order, trying to hold on to P6 on track as he can, but his tyres now beginning to drop off with 19 laps on them. Slash and Larkin now, I mentioned the Hungry Wolves, 1.5 seconds to Gary, and Gary on absolutely dead tyres at this point. Slash and Larkin, you'd imagine there won't be much of a resistance to getting in that DRS range.
Yeah, they are gonna be able to close up, you reckon, but are they gonna be able to get past us? He gets a penalty, and that's one thing they have to be careful as well. For example, Simon, he can't pick up another penalty now. If he does, he is in danger of Slash and Larkin if they do get through on Gary, and that is and can be very costly. Don't think there'll be any safety cars anymore, but I probably just about jinxed that for now. Larkin is going to just sit back for now, just behind Slash. They are going to have to close up for the final sector, where the softs do have a lot more grip.
Yeah, certainly. So this could be their opportunity now. Slash has slightly less battery than Larkin, so Larkin may try and use that to his advantage. Of course, he'll want to get through on track as well. We're inside now at the last 3 laps of the Grand Prix. Gary has done such a good job to just keep the rest of this train at arm's length, but this is a challenge that he hasn't faced throughout this race. Behind that, we're looking at Larkin. Can he get through on Slash? Slash pulls right over to the inside line, but Larkin, quite simply, no resistance with that extra top end speed, cruises through. And Larkin now, we saw the potential in that strategy then when he backed off in qualifying. Now he's staring down a potential P2, and Slash as well a podium. We'll see how this is going to work out. Can Gary hold on against this mate chasing after him in the late phases of this race? Timon, you mentioned he could get another penalty that puts him under pressure, but at the moment he looks very comfortable. He doesn't have to push in the slightest to preserve the front of this race. The softs do seem to be past their best as well. Larkin's pace isn't exactly amazing, and I don't think he's quite got DRS off of Gary. So Gary may be able to survive a little bit longer. Funky checking with a penalty. That is fairly inconsequential, though. At this stage, he retires from the race in the pit lane, so brings an end to his night. Creco attacking Carmentless on the outside, doesn't get much space. Can he get through on the outside then? Creco deep on the brakes, goes off the track. They're both off the track. Carmentless sent it on him, and now that's going to set up Matt Tebos to sweep through on both of them. Makes contact with Creco. Carmentless right down into ninth. They came together, and now Carmentless fighting back to Creco. A fierce battle between the two of them. Creco holds on, and in the end they both went in oh so deep, and now Carmentless looks completely ailed at this point of the race. His tyres are going off, 20 laps on them. Now Larkin within range, Slash being dragged with him then, so all of a sudden everything evolves. Creco now coming forward towards Matt Tibos, sends it down the inside, gets plenty of space. Contact between Williams and AlphaTauri, trading paint, trading rubber as they go wheel to wheel again. Heading through turn number 4, nothing between them then at the closing stages of this race. Inside is Creco, and again they're getting tapped. Carmentless, and that screaming to a spin. That screaming Carmentless came together nose to tail, and the AlphaTauri has gone round now. Set back in this race. This has been an unreal end here, and it's not over yet, because now we're looking. Gary, Larkin, Slash, line of start on the racetrack then, looking to go to war heading into these final few laps. Gary has pretty much nothing left on battery, but Larkin doesn't have much more. Can he find a way through? Timon is way out in front of this race, heading for victory, and a major dent in Carmentless championship leads. Jaco gets back through on Coxey. He has the penalty though. How much will it mean? He does get to P5 on the road though, in front of the dropping back Aston Martin, struggling at this late stage in the race. So final lap now in order for Timon, nearly 7 seconds clear, way in front and dominant here in Russia. Let's see what the rest of them have in order. It wasn't a good exit off the final corner from Larkin, but we've seen his immense straight line speed come into play. He gets up to Gary, Alfa Romeo chasing Red Bull inside to turn number 2. He's gonna snatch the place on the entry. Larkin P2, what a drive through the field from XL Larkin. Can Gary hold off Slash for the podium then as they duel towards the flag and the closing stages here at Ibbo Autodrome? So let's see now, inside the final 2/3 of the lap. It's been, I'd have to say, one of the best races of this season then. Wheel to wheel, it's been epic. Not much fighting for the win, but ultimately we could be staring down an Alfa Romeo 1-2 as those guys now heading for it. Can Gary use that DRS to just stave off the intentions of TDG Slash in the final stages? Let's see. Larkin, I think, has just got enough distance in. Gary now, the last of his battery, everything he's got. It's been a bold, brave strategy from XL Gary, and it might just be rewarded in a podium. It's close to Larkin, not close enough though. But up front, QRT Timon simply without a blemish has been his drive tonight. He's already waving, celebrating then as he comes up towards the final few corners. He has fought through them all. He has dominated here in Ibbo. QRT Timon wins the Ibbo Autodrome race, and it's going to be an Alfa Romeo 1-2. Larkin P2, Gary P3. Great drives from all the podium guys. J. Cole's penalty sets him down the order. He actually ties with Carmentalist. Carmentalist somehow just edges it on 10,000th of a second, I'm guessing that'll be. That Scream 10th, Forza Brendan C. That'll be the points finishers. Nathan JB will cross in 13th. That was, I think, one of the most breathless races of the season. And in the end, Alfa Romeo rise up from the ashes, and it's a 1-2 for that team that ultimately will move well into contention and potentially a super lead in that constructors' standings. Great drive from those guys.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Dominating drive from Timon, and Larkin, as always, getting just through the field, avoiding all the carnage and making the right moves at the right time, and getting himself up into P2 with that last lap move on Gary, and just waiting for Nathan JB to cross the line without the front wing, interestingly enough. And he has no point. Disappointing evening for him.
Yeah, certainly. After, again, a race that showed much promise then, Slash gets given driver of the day from the in-game fans, and to be fair, he certainly did a very solid job. Coming through the field, we often see Slash, great qualifying, not so great races. Not the case tonight, but in the end, just off the podium there, Gary fends him off to the line. So that is your podium, Timon, Larkin, Gary. And again, that big dent into the championship lead of Carmentalist comes through. Both those Alfa Romeos as well will work their way into contention. Timon, most of all, though, will get himself right into it. And all of a sudden, I think we could see 3 drivers at least within that championship then, as both the Alfa Romeos move into contention.
Yeah, both of them do definitely move into contention. When you through the results again, Timon winning ahead of Larkin and Gary. Slash in P4, good recovery drive. Coxey, very well driven as well in P5. Creco, P6. Matt Tibbles, P7. Then Carmentalist and J. Cole tie-in, actually, as you can see for the time. Carmentalist just never in that position. And J. Cole in P9 with that penalty, unfortunately for him, cost him quite a few points. And the Scream in P10, Forza Brendan P11, CP12, then Nathan JB P13, Funky Chicken and Marnie, unfortunately not finishing here tonight. Let's see if we can get these guys in for some podium interviews.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those guys are usually up for it, so we should hear from all of them. So yeah, I think going into the break, of course, heading towards China, we'll see how that is going to go down. Of course, these guys will have that chance to reset. But in the end, what looked like a relatively unassailable lead for Carmentalist in the standings. There was a long way to go after the first half of the season. And Timon, again, he hasn't had a great season. Larkin hasn't had a great season. Even Carmentalist hasn't had a great season. But somehow those guys have risen above the ashes in what has been one of the most bizarre seasons I've ever seen. That race was actually one of the more normal ones, I'd say, throughout the season. So we'll see what we get from those guys. Timon, though, an unstoppable force, and I think he's mentioned some of these next tracks suit him. We'll get, I imagine, his thoughts from the interviews as we can now get those started right now. Timon is now with us. Well, mate, I don't think there's really much to say here because you just completely controlled that race from start to finish. There was a bit of pressure from Nathan JB early on, I suppose, but of course, through the pit stops, that gap opened up and really just never came under threat throughout the race. Was there any moment throughout that race you were worried in the slightest?
When I got the penalty and I saw the soft runners were somewhat getting through the traffic, but those were the first runners and then they really got stuck. But after that, not really, apart from the final lap with 3 corners to go, just avoiding the wall nicely. I don't know if you got it on the stream, but went well around that. So, I mean, I was worried when I was worried out of the pit lane that only Gary jumped me, which was a positive, and then they started fighting behind me, so we got a second, and then I saw Gary make a mistake into turn 1, and then I just pushed on, got him out of the DRS, and afterwards I just, pretty much drove some laps.
You get a nice little 27 lap time trial for yourself, really. Yeah, I mean, you clearly had a lot of confidence going in. Just what was the feeling just driving this track? Because you just seemed at home from the start, first runs in qualifying to the end of the 27 lap race.
I mean, I really don't mind this track. I like it a lot. I was really happy with my qualifying lap because when doing practice sessions, I saw people do 0.9s with the likes of Gary, Slash, and a lot of others. So I was worried I wasn't going to get pole and going to be qualifying P7, and it would have been a completely different story then. But when I got pole position and I had a good start, I was very happy with that. And I mean, I switched setups because I first had 8.5 wings, which worked really well for some reason on the mediums, but on the softs it was utter shite. So, and then I went to 9.9 wings, had a really good setup, got very confident with it, and yeah, in the end I'm very happy how it went.
Yeah, certainly. That is completely played into your hands, no doubt about that. And, well, you have completely cut into that championship lead of Carmentalist with that. I think Carmentalist, as I'm still stuck at the results screen, I can definitely see it very clearly. He finished 8th in the race, so you gain a full 20 points on him. You're just 6 points behind now in the standings. You've said these next few races suit you. What are your thoughts heading into the final part of the season?
No, I'm just going to go on holiday now. Enjoy it. I'll come back on Saturday. I'll actually do, and then I'll just grind China all day. After this, it's all bad circuits apart from Canada and Abu Dhabi. Those are the only two I don't like, and I'm confident on the others I can be up there. That's for sure. Win is, you of course can't guarantee it, but I know I got good base. I'm confident there, so I got 100% confidence I could still fight for this championship, and especially with Larkin finishing P2 here was someone who I didn't really expect from like looking at 3 rounds ago to be in the championship, but he's on a really good form recently as well. So we'll certainly get constructors, I think, if we don't bottle both like the rest of the season. But it will be interesting because Larkin's sped as well. We have the same playing grounds, and he's got ABS, so he's got an advantage. So we'll see.
I knew it was going to get brought up at some point, but there we go. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the race win. No worries, man. I guess now we will move on. Hear your thoughts from your teammate XL Larkin to P2. The first thing I have to ask you then, because obviously from qualifying we saw you going for that alternate strategy. How tense was the end of that session? Because it looked a bit touch and go whether you were going to actually get to that P11 spot.
Yeah, I messed that up a little bit, didn't I? I knew with 15 drivers that alt strat could work really well. You wouldn't have so much battling amongst yourselves. So I really wanted to come P11, and I thought I'd worked out in my head sort of exactly how much I needed to back off. Maths never was my strong point, so I ended up going into P9, I think. I had like a moment of panic, but then thankfully 2 people did better laps and pushed me down to P11, so actually it was perfect.
All calculated in the end, I think. But yeah, so of course, excellent drive throughout the field. Just what was the optimism like? You made a great start. You held on quite nicely in that first stint. Of course, you get into the pit stops. You look in front, see the situation. Did you think, yeah, I can drive through the P2? It looked promising, but certainly not easy. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't know how much quicker the softs were going to be when we first came out, but then I think within the first lap I could see the deltas, like to the guys ahead, were plummeting, so I knew that we were going to catch. I knew I had Slash with me as well. I pretty much let Slash go because his pace was awesome. He probably deserves to be on this podium if people didn't defend like idiots. But yeah, I just sort of followed Slash around and looking at how hard people were defending and how much sort of carnage it was causing. It was a little bit worrying, but I sort of followed him through at points and it worked out quite well.
Certainly did, and well, I think this seemed almost hard to believe just 5 rounds ago. This second place, because of the nature of this season and the way that no one has been consistent in any way, this really brings you into the title fight. And in all my years of racing with you and commentating on you, I've never seen you lose a title fight. So what are your thoughts heading forward?
Well, I mean, when I won D2 a couple of years ago, wasn't I about 50 points behind Matt 240 at about this stage of the season, and I came back and won that one, so I'll try and do it again. TDV looks ominously quick, which is going to be worrying. I think last round of the season we might have an Alfa Romeo putting the other Alfa Romeo in the wall. We'll wait and see.
We'll see if it comes to that. I just realised I've completely left Verstappen out of this. Sorry. You know what? My brain just went a bit. I don't know why. You can ask a question to both of the Alfa Romeo guys then.
But I don't think I have any question for Simon, to be honest, because not a lot happened there. Actually, I do have one. Was that penalty completely just out of pure lacklusterness? Because obviously you were 4 or 5 seconds up the road at that point. Were you just kind of driving about, cruising? And then,
I was cruising again. I hit the high curb in the double left-hander, and I pretty much got launched off the track, and I somehow didn't spin it, which was a scary moment, which I somewhat forgot about. And I went off track and got a warning, which I think I could have removed it still, because I got one warning where I kind of got pushed off, but in the end it's not really needed.
yeah, definitely isn't with the lead you had. I have to say, just incredibly driven there. And yeah, for Larkin, you said you mentioned you were about 50 points behind in that, I think season 5 it was with Matt, which you nabbed it at the end. At this point, you are, to my calculations, about 18 points behind. The top 4 is within that margin. Do you feel your chances are even better this season?
It's so. I mean, the chances. I mean, surely the chances are better. Like the gap's smaller. But it's so hard to predict what happens in this division. Just so many different people are good at like every track. Safety cars come out at points. Weather hasn't played a factor yet, and it could still do that. And there's also a massive sort of variation of tracks. I mean, there's only 5 left, but we've got China, which is a brilliant pad and ABS track, but then we've got things like Canada, which are going to suit car mentalists a lot more, I think. I hope it's close. I don't really mind who wins, because any one of us, I think, would deserve it. None of us have driven like idiots, so it should just be good fun.
Yeah, we'll see how that is going to go. And I guess lastly, we're going to come to Mr. XL Gary, who I imagine is probably about 5 kilos lighter after that race, given the way things have worked out. Sorry it's taken so long to get to you, but just first obvious question I have to ask, just how tense were those last few laps?
Well, I was really in autopilot for most of that race, because obviously Timon just had ridiculous pace, and I made a pretty silly mistake that let him get out of DRS, but I think he would have driven away anyway, so GG to him anyway, first off. But yeah, those last few laps were quite sweaty. Once I realised that the staff runners were actually going to catch me, I had to really push, and the tyres were not liking that. And I thought I had Larkin, to be honest. I thought I had just the gap for Larkin. If the race had been one lap less, I would have got him, or just kept ahead of him. But yeah, look, I'm just racing for fun at the end of the season now. Like, I only started practice today, so get a podium, it's nice. But yeah, it is what it is. So we'll just see what happens next few races. But I'm not that fussed, second or third. It doesn't really make a difference to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw you seemed very at home at this track, heading throughout the rest of the day. Just, I guess, it's hard to really ask you questions because you just said you were on autopilot the entire race, so you're just not really thinking through it. I guess, what was your reaction to essentially the entire midfield imploding behind you and just giving you that gap where you could just cruise in that net P2?
I was enjoying it. I was sort of hoping that someone would take out Aiden with them. I don't want anyone to get into a crash, but I'm just saying, if you're going to crash, you might as well if you're going to take someone with you, it might as well be him, just to make it interesting. Just to make it interesting, you know. But
it's interesting now.
Well, but I want it more interesting so I can get myself involved. I'm still definitely way too far back, so. But yeah, it was quite boring for me. I feel like I bought a quad. I think pole position was there for me. I didn't really hook up any laps, so that was quite annoying. I think could have been a little bit different if I had been ahead of time, and I think I might have hit a little bit too early as well. But yeah, nothing happened for me. So like, it is what it is. That's probably one of the most boring races I've ever had. I can't remember anything that happened to it. I see no car. Like, I nearly ran out of fuel because I didn't have any slipstream or DRS for the whole race. It was painful, that race.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the only, probably one of the most normal races we've had this season, which is strange. But looking forward, we've got 5 rounds left to go. Of course, we've got our break week between the Ibbo Grand Prix and the Chinese Grand Prix next up after this. So, thoughts going forward? How do you like the look of those last 5 tracks, those last 5 rounds? Because you say you're too far back, but you're not completely out of it, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, well, the issue is I'm missing China, isn't it? So that's gonna make it. That's gonna probably make it impossible. But yeah, I really like Canada. I really like Abu Dhabi. What other tracks we got left? Brazil, I don't like, and Hungary. So I like 4 of the last 5 that I'll be racing in, or 3 to 4 last, whatever it is. I like those tracks, but yeah, I'd probably have to win every race realistically to have a chance, and I don't think that will happen. So I think the battle is between Tymon Larkin and Aiden, and I would very much like Larkin to win it again. No bias, just yeah, out of 3, I'd rather Larkin win it.
Okay, I don't know if we're going to put that down to org bias or XL bias. You're not an org anymore, but you know. Yeah, I mean, I guess after, with all said and done, you could try and think of a question for Verstappen for our 3rd place finisher tonight.
I do actually have one. What was the thought about your early pit stop? Because that seems incredibly early to me. I know the tires made that, but it wasn't. It was nowhere near ideal. Obviously, towards the end.
No, it wasn't. I sort of worked and I sort of didn't. I was Tymon had really good pace. I thought I would have had a gap that I had with Nate, and I was sort of expecting to have that with Tymon, and it didn't happen. I just felt like if I pitted early, break DRS, and the rest of the guys were behind were in a DRS round, like we saw with J. Cole and Ryan, I maybe could have pulled away a little bit, but nah, Tymon was a little bit too quick for me, and I thought, why not? I'm not fighting for a championship, I don't think anyway. So, probably the only way I was going to win that race was doing a massive undercut. And it didn't work out completely, but I'd probably do the same again.
Fair enough.
Well, it worked to get you on the podium at the very least, and I know you keep saying, of course, you're out of contention in the championship. If you can win Monaco, you can do anything. I'd say. Your 3rd podium of the season, though, very well done. I think that's going to be just about everything covered for the 12th round of the season. I guess with the Sir Ibbo Grand Prix out the way, come to you, Verstappen. Any final thoughts for the night?
Actually, given the low attendance, I don't know if it has any influence, but it does seem like one of the more reserve races, you have to say. Even though it was very entertaining in that sub-top train, if I have to call it like that, it was very entertaining and very clean, mostly as well. Saw a few moves here and there, but that always kind of just happens. Yeah, overall, very entertaining in a good way.
Yeah, very enjoyable race, it must be said. After the unorganised chaos of the rest of the season, it's certainly quite refreshing. But I think that's going to be just about it for tonight. So, as always, thank you all very much for watching. Don't tune in next week. Tune in the week after that for the Chinese Grand Prix. We'll see you then. But I think we're just about everything done for tonight. From myself and Verstappen, it is goodbye for now. And until next time, we'll see you later.